Hello, everybody. We are starting off with the first round of the PeaceBridge 2024 tournament. This tournament is being held in the fabulous Ontario, Canada, the Great White North. We are being hosted by Howard Bertrand, who's putting on just an absolutely fantastic event, and I can't thank him enough. We are recording the commentary post, but Howard put up a large tent for the event in on his property. Howard had food included for the price of admission, which the food was amazing. There was some great meatballs, some brisket, free drinks, coolers filled the entire weekend. So this first round of the tournament is going to be co-commentated by David McMillan. As I said, we're recording out of order, so you'll hear later in the episode the first game I ever commentated with him. But now, even though it's the first round, Dave and I are becoming an old hand at this. So say hi, Dave, and give us a little bit of what's going on in the game already.
All right. Well, good to see everybody virtually. Right now, we have Sean Ballantyne, a veteran and a great of the game, playing a unique deck. We see X-Man, White Queen, and Donald Pierce on the front line. So a little energy, intellect stack. Interestingly, we have Professor X in reserve, and he has the +2 to all actions placed to him right off the bat. And I'd be interested to see what kind of trickery Sean has planned here. This is very interesting. Steve, my brother-in-law, is playing looks like Spawn, Beast the Brute, and Alpha Flight. So a pretty vanilla crunchy deck. We have a little Sean is playing what is that? One mission set. Maximum
Maximum
Carnage.
Carnage.
And Steve is playing a traditional Shattered Image. So looks like any heroes versus Sight. And also it looks like Sean is playing Odin's Vault, one of our favorites. So he's doing
Yeah.
some interesting artifact trickery. Let's see what we have.
Now Odin's Vault. So Sean's decks seems like a variation. Sean bets two. Sean, I've seen a variation of this where he would run Onslaught in the back. Uh, Steve manages to place out 5 cards to Sean's 4, but only 3 are usable until Professor X comes up. So Sean only goes 2. Uh, Steve takes it. Oh wait, did he go 3?
It
Maybe he
looks like
actually went
three.
3. Steve still just bet and ran and is going to try to fight the later battle. He's also so Sean discards a card. He puts an artifact in hand. So Steve can calculate that that artifact is not going to be worth venture or damage.
So it looks like the artifact was pin particles. So for the viewer, you need to have 6 strength to use pin particles. A teammate that you place it onto has to have 5 or less. And then for the remainder of game during the draw phase, you choose whether you and your opponent draw 6, 8, or 10 cards. This is something I think you typically see with mill decks, but Sean might be using it also to change gears on the opponent. Sometimes he might have Steve draw 6. Sometimes they might both draw 10. We'll see what happens.
So a very interesting placing. So the JW on White Queen, you'll see a lot of that this tournament. It's a 3 intellect. White Queen can play a power card. Both of the attacks may not be defended by a special. Steve's playing a very special, heavy defensive deck. Steve's probably going to opt to hold a few of his power cards in hand. So this is the Sean Ballantyne special. He was a little bit down, but he managed to get the venture. Steve wasn't really able to keep up with the placing advantage. Steve did manage to get his Grim Reaper down. That's a targeted attack. If it's successful, the opponent has to discard 4 cards with an icon of Steve's choice. But Steve also has in his hand his Cataclysm. It is a defensive 1 per deck. Steve's playing the one that's the least popular. It avoids a special card attack for a teammate, and then he gets to draw a card. So that's going to change the calculus a little bit for Sean, but Sean's managed to do what he does. What he loves to do is get a huge placing advantage with a lot of very deadly cards. So it seems like Sean's on a little more of a bullying strategy, and he's got those JWs to cut through that special card defense. So
Now, I have to say, with the fact that White Queen's placed follow up to the JW was also blue, it was also intellect, I think Steve should have placed another power card if he could have. Because the pressure there's a lot of blue showing. We have a 7 intellect on power card on Donald Pierce, the 3 intellect make additional, and a 3 intellect power card on White Queen. Steve could really just defend this battle the 4 multi and the 8 energy on X-Man, and that teamwork perhaps, and the rest of it color-wise is mitigated. So I think Steve might have been better served to place at least one more if he could have.
We're not sure. Steve also does have his guardian. So interesting. Steve throws the 9. He eats up the negate on Donald Pierce. He gets 2 to the top. Sean moves 1 to the bottom. So they've kind of level out in in missions. But
Yes.
now they're in a position where they're pretty close on placed cards. Sean's got 6. Steve's got 7, but Steve is sitting on that very, very powerful power leech. Now, I'm trying to see if Sean has called anything for. It looks like Sean has called 6 cards. So it looks like they will be playing with a lot less cards. Steve had 2 duplicates. Sean had 1. But Sean also took the Book of the Darkholm. So
Now, interestingly, I might have placed the avoid special and draw to my home base if possible, just to have that card advantage built in. But I understand also why it's nice to be able to get power leech by. In fact, with Sean showing just 2 or 3 cards in hand, this might be a place where Steve tries to take a poke with Grim Reaper and sees if he can get those actions.
I think if I'm Steve, I just go 2 here.
Yep.
Sean is gonna. I was gonna say exactly this. You place everything you can. Now I might have. I think this is where he's being a little too conservative. I would have placed the 6 for sure on Beast. This is the position where Sean has to draw a negate, or he has to draw a special
Yes.
card defense from his battle site, or that Grim Reaper is going to go through. He can bet 2, end up with 4 up top. And if Sean doesn't have the defense, Steve's going first. He's going to bet 1 and run. And I think you just lean on that advantage and place as much as you can. So this is a situation where I think Steve needs to be building up that placing as much as possible and just leaning on Sean. Sean is, interestingly enough, employing a draw 6 strategy here. The Pim particles that he has in play, he's only allowing Steve to draw 6 cards. And it seems to be that he's slowly building up his placing advantage back and starting to get caught up and ahead of Steve. So it's a little more of
Yeah.
an
Look,
attrition grindy strategy, but we're going to see how it works out.
I think it's working great so far. Unfortunately, I think Steve being a little conservative with placing those power cards and not really getting his special cards early has really allowed Sean to get a commanding placement advantage. And with the pin particles, it's going to be tough for Steve to draw back.
Steve's a very good player, but he is still a little bit less experienced than the average player. So it's going to be interesting to see when he decides to take a shot with that Grim Reaper. So he does play the ally into the 4 half multi for Alpha Flight. Historically a card that doesn't see a ton of play but is very strong. Oof. Oh, wow. So this could be a devastating turn if Steve does not have the ability to block that, which he doesn't.
Oh no.
So the White Queen has telepathically manipulated Spawn to go into the reserve and discard all of his cards. That is a huge, huge swing in this game against Steve. Now,
That
Sean's
was played from
probably
hand, correct?
played from hand.
Yeah, that's
Sean most
challenging.
likely has a defense for that power leech, and so Steve is in a position here where I hope he doesn't throw it. I wouldn't throw it here. I think Sean's betting on him being panicked, but
Yeah.
I think this is Sean's strategy, and I have to say I really, really like what Sean's doing with power leech here. Sean now has a commanding placing advantage, and I guarantee you're not going to see. Yep. So I think Steve does the right thing. Sean's not going to let him draw more than 6 cards the rest of this game, and he's just going to lean on that gigantic placing advantage he just generated. And I have to say, I love what Sean's doing here. What a really cool and unique deck design.
Now I have to say I have questions about the purpose of Professor X in the back. I'm assuming he just backs up the grids very well with the 8
It's
energy and the 7 intellect.
show
But
Sean likes to play very teamwork heavy, and I know from his old deck with White Queen, he would play Onslaught in the back simply to back up everyone's teamworks. It was almost the same deck. And I
Interesting.
think what we're seeing here is Sean playing the Odin's Vault version and has just decided to go to a cheaper character that backs up the intellect and the energy, but doesn't back up the strength, and instead he's getting access to the artifacts.
Sean just bets two. So Sean, I think, for the viewers that don't know, Sean and I used to play on the old Overpower Online application a lot of games right around the birth of my first son. And he definitely might have taught me really my grinding style of play. He's only bets two here, where I think with this placement advantage, he probably could put the foot in the gas pedal, but he doesn't need to, given
Well,
that
not only does he doesn't need to, but he doesn't want to. I say I see what he's doing. He's got, as long as he's got that placing advantage and Steve can only draw 6 cards,
yeah,
he has no incentive to ever give him an extra card. If Steve fights, Steve's going to exhaust his placing advantage. All right, so that is a card no one per decks may be played, and those characters don't have a lot of one per decks that you really want to see play with. The only one that possibly could see play are the artifacts that are placed. The one artifact, the
so
Book of the Darkholm.
Steve pitched a duplicate Spawn Protector of the Innocent. He also has a one per deck 10 any power attack on Alpha, as well as that aspect. The ISIS promo card is also one per deck. So this
And
is
the Grim Reaper. That's the other thing, is the no one per deck shuts down all the any heroes in Steve's deck, which is also a lot of his premier defense. I think you're going to see Sean go for the win here. Sean has got so many cards. He shut down 3. Steve is only showing 5 placed cards that he can actually play and a small amount from hand,
oh
and just realized he had another duplicate. So I think Sean's a good enough player. He's going to smell the blood in the water. He's going to go for the win here. Yeah,
now
so he
a
bets the
side
3.
conversation. Those two four multis are different art. I'm really a big advocate for when you play your power cards, making sure you use the same art. Oh,
And the same thing, he just realized that the 6 any is also a 1 per deck and can't be played, so he has to discard it. So that non-1 per deck took out 5 cards from Steve's side of the table. Yeah, just,
oh, you can't play that
no, he
either.
can't play that. And Sean is going to remember. And then I think the motion of Steve's hands, I think, makes him realize that the game is done. He throws the 2 to 8. It's not going to go through.
Yeah,
So
that's a
the other
very
thing that's
tough.
interesting, yeah,
Sorry, go ahead.
tough game. But I was gonna say, interestingly enough, if you notice, Sean was playing the Ultimate Nullifier as his 3rd artifact, as was Martin during the tournament. I was playing an artifact heavy strategy, and uh, there were 3 people had the silver bullet for my deck, which is very surprising.
I think we've moved to a point in Overpower where the meta can shift tournament by tournament, and you're seeing far more diverse deck building. I think we might have had at least 4 Odin's Vaults in the field, and also a number of other folks using image inducers as a part of their deck. So I think Nullifier is going to have a fringe case use in the game moving forward.
Yeah, I have to be honest. I am such a huge proponent of the image inducer in general. If you've got an energy stat on your team, that card just wins battles sometimes. I love that card, and I'm shocked how little it sees play.
You have to play at least one. In fact, I was not playing one in Oklahoma, a shootout, and I don't know why. That's a mistake. So
I think people sometimes just forget when they're building their deck. Their artifacts are played so little, you're not used to going to your stack of artifacts, but it's just such a strong card. So Sean has got the artifact Ultimate Nullifier in play. We didn't explain it, but 6 energy to use, played on anyone, basically anyone. It says a 5 or less any power, which is every character. It lets you discard 2 cards from the top of your draw pile into the dead pile to shift a hit to the character who it's in play on. What that allows is Sean's really in a situation where he can just sacrifice Donald Pierce if he needs to. He can shift hits away when there's a kill shot. It just gives him some really good control over hits, and he's able to fire off a kill shot and eliminate two more cards, which were two of the only playable cards Steve had left. So Sean, with the venture on the board, I believe, has already won this game.
Yes. I respect Steve for playing it out and just a series of tough draws and a really challenging deck build puzzle from Sean just makes this a really challenging.
Yeah, I don't even know. So Steve's out of cards. Sean's just showing that he can murder all of his characters, and there's the handshake. Yeah, I have to say, this. I'm gonna be honest. This is one I'm gonna watch a couple of times because it's such an interesting deck from Sean. I'll be interested to see how he does for the rest of the day, as if I don't know. But it's a great deck, and I'm definitely gonna watch the film again because Steve really had a commanding placing advantage early, and the White Queen card was devastating and really changed it. But I feel like Sean Ballantyne had already started to come back and control the momentum. And I guess the question is, should Steve had bet a little more aggressively early on to try to make one of the fights happen? I'm not sure.
So
But
I would posit I think there's two moments of inflection in this battle for Steve, and one was I really think he should have placed his Cataclysm rather than Power Leech or Grim Reaper because that would have defended the White Queen. It always gives you the draw off of it. It's like a safety blanket. You want to get that in. And I think what Sean showed you in this game, it's a lot of times stronger to play Penance Stairs, Razas, Telepathic Manipulators, and Grim Reaper out of hand with the element of surprise. Because if you hit, it's a victory condition. Once he got Steve for those three place cards, it was going to be really challenging to come back. And
yeah,
that's why Sean is one of the greats.
it's a tough call because I also do like the fact though that the way he got ahead on Venture is hand two. Sean just couldn't stay in because he's like, well, I'm going to lose four cards and they're mostly going to be placed. So it's tough. I definitely think everything you're saying is valid, but maybe I don't know if I have what it takes to place that Cataclysm over knowing I get to carry my Grim Reaper's pressure every battle. But then again, that's the problem with playing an offensive special is once one negate goes down, it really takes the teeth out of it. So, I think you're making some really good points. But guys, that was round one. Thanks for jumping in. I'm assuming most of you are going to watch these in order. But having seen some of the other games, we have some amazing games. We've already done the commentary for the next round. One of the best overpower games I've been had the pleasure to commentate on. So I recommend you go right over and watch round two. It is a wonderful game between my co-commentator of this round, Dave McMillan, and Phil the King Keffer. So we will see you guys in round two. Thanks very much.